Archangel Michael says, you were meant to find this. Despite everything. Despite the busy schedule that almost kept you scrolling past. Despite the tiredness that almost made you close this app minutes ago. Despite every reasonable excuse your mind offered for why now was not the right time to stop and actually pay attention. You stopped anyway. That matters. More than you realize right now. Think about how many things had to align for you to be reading these exact words in this exact moment. The timing of your day. The mood you happen to be in. The specific thought that made you pause instead of continuing to scroll. None of that was random. You were meant to find this. Let that sentence sit with you for a moment. Not as flattery. Not as some vague, feel-good phrase meant to hook your attention and then disappear into nothing. As a genuine invitation to actually notice what brought you here. Something in you has been searching. You already know what for. It came to mind the second you read that sentence. Maybe it is clarity. Maybe it is peace. Maybe it is simply permission to finally stop pretending everything is fine when it is not. Whatever it is, this message found you anyway. Despite everything trying to keep you distracted. Here is something worth understanding clearly. Life rarely makes space for genuine reflection. It fills every gap instead. Work fills it. Errands fill it. Noise fills it. Screens fill it before you even notice the emptiness they are covering up. And still, somehow, today, this particular message reached you. That is not nothing. Think about everything competing for your attention today alone. Messages. Notifications. Deadlines. Small emergencies that felt urgent but were not actually that important. Somewhere in the middle of all of that, you still found your way here. Something in you wanted this. Needed this. Chose this, even quietly, even without fully realizing it. Honor that. Here is something Archangel Michael wants you to understand today. The specific matter weighing on you right now was never hidden from your awareness by accident. It has been waiting. Patiently. For a moment exactly like this one. A moment where you finally stop moving long enough to actually look at it directly. Name it now. Silently, if that feels right. Just name it. Whatever specific weight came to mind, it is real. It matters. And it has been waiting for exactly this kind of honest attention. You almost did not give it that attention today. Something almost pulled you away before you got here. But you made it anyway. Despite everything. Here is something worth sitting with honestly. Distraction is not accidental. It rarely is. The moments when genuine reflection feels most difficult to access are often the exact moments when something important is trying hardest to reach you. Think about how many times recently you have felt a quiet nudge towards something meaningful, only to have it interrupted by a phone call, a task, a sudden burst of busyness that conveniently arrived right when stillness was finally within reach. That pattern is common. Painfully common. And today, despite that same pattern likely trying to operate again, you broke through it. You are here. Reading this. Present. Finally. That took something. Even if you cannot fully name what. Here is something worth understanding about timing specifically. You did not find this message a week ago. You did not find it a month from now. You found it today. Right now. In this exact moment of your life. That timing is not coincidental. Whatever specific season you are currently walking through, whatever specific difficulty or decision or quiet ache has been present recently, this message arrived precisely when it did, because this precise moment is when you needed it most. Not before you were ready. Not after the moment had already passed. Now. Trust that timing. Here is something worth naming clearly. You have likely doubted yourself recently. Doubted whether things will actually improve. Doubted whether you are handling everything as well as you should be. Doubted whether anyone even notices how hard you have been trying. That doubt is loud sometimes. Loud enough to drown out quieter, truer things. This message is one of those truer things. It made it through the noise anyway. Let it remind you that the noise does not get the final word. You do. Here is something worth understanding about persistence. The specific hope or clarity you have been quietly seeking did not give up on you, even during the periods when you may have felt like giving up on it. It kept waiting. Patiently. Through the busy days. Through the distracted moments. Through every reasonable excuse that almost kept you from finally sitting still long enough to receive it. It waited for you. And today, you showed up. That is worth honoring. Think about the specific thing you have been hoping for lately. Not vaguely. Specifically. Whatever it actually is. That hope did not disappear during your busiest, most distracted days. It simply waited quietly in the background, patient, until a moment exactly like this one arrived. This is that moment. Here is something Archangel Michael wants you to genuinely consider today. What if the very fact that you almost missed this, and did not, is itself a small but meaningful sign? Not proof of anything dramatic or supernatural in the way movies portray these things. Simply proof that something in you refused to let this particular moment pass by unnoticed. That refusal came from somewhere real. Somewhere honest. Somewhere inside you that already knew this mattered. Trust that part of yourself. It rarely leads you wrong. Here is something worth understanding about the specific difficulty you may currently be facing. It has felt heavy. Maybe heavier than you have admitted out loud to anyone. Maybe heavier than you have even fully admitted to yourself. You have been carrying it quietly. Showing up anyway. Functioning anyway. Smiling when necessary, even while something inside you felt strained beneath the surface. This message sees that. Fully. Without minimizing a single part of how hard it has actually been. And it found you anyway. Despite everything. Consider what it would mean to finally set some of that weight down, even briefly, right now, in this exact moment. Not permanently solving everything today. Simply pausing. Breathing. Letting yourself be seen, even just by this message, even just for a few minutes. You deserve that pause. Here is something worth understanding about the specific quality of exhaustion that comes from carrying something silently for too long. This particular exhaustion differs from ordinary tiredness. It settles into the body differently. It affects sleep differently. It makes even small, ordinary tasks feel disproportionately heavy, because so much energy is already being spent simply maintaining the appearance that everything is fine. If this particular kind of exhaustion has been present in your own life, notice it honestly right now. Do not rush past this acknowledgement simply because naming it feels uncomfortable. The discomfort of naming it is far smaller than the ongoing cost of continuing to carry it silently, unnamed, indefinitely. Here is something worth naming honestly. You have likely been waiting for a sign. Something to confirm that you are not simply spinning your wheels. Something to confirm that better days are actually possible, not just something people say to be kind. Consider this message that sign. Not because it promises instant transformation. Because it proves something simpler and more important. That despite everything trying to keep you distracted, disconnected, and exhausted, something still managed to reach you today. If that can happen, so can other good things. Quietly. Patiently. In their own time. Think about the last time you felt genuinely hopeful about something. Not forced positivity. Genuine, quiet hope. If it feels difficult to remember, that itself is worth noticing gently, without judgment. Hope sometimes grows quiet during extended difficult seasons, not because it has disappeared entirely, but because it has simply had less room to breathe amid everything else demanding attention. This message is an invitation to give that hope a little more room again, starting today. Here is something worth understanding about what almost stopped you from finding this. Maybe it was simple busyness. Maybe it was doubt, whispering that stopping to read something like this was pointless or silly. Maybe it was exhaustion, the kind that makes even meaningful things feel like too much effort. Whatever it was, notice that it did not actually win. You are still here. That is worth acknowledging directly. You did something today that many people do not do. You chose presence over distraction, even briefly, even imperfectly. Here is something worth sitting with. Consider how many messages like this one you have scrolled past before, without ever stopping. Consider what made today different. Was it the specific wording? Was it simply the state you happened to be in when it appeared? Was it something less explainable, a readiness building quietly inside you that finally reached its threshold today? Whatever the actual reason, today it worked. You stopped. You are still here, reading this sentence right now. Let this moment matter. Do not rush past it the way so many other moments have been rushed past recently. Here is something Archangel Michael wants you to carry forward from today. This particular reflection does not need to end the moment you close this message. The clarity or comfort you are feeling right now can continue, if you let it, rather than immediately dissolving back into ordinary distraction the moment your attention shifts elsewhere. Consider what it would mean to protect this feeling, even slightly, for the rest of today. Perhaps by taking one small action connected to whatever this message has helped you notice. Perhaps simply by remembering, later today, that you found something real here, and choosing not to dismiss it the moment life gets busy again. Here is something worth understanding about small, specific action. Insight without action tends to fade quickly. It feels powerful in the moment, then quietly disappears once ordinary demands return. If this message has stirred something real in you, consider what one small step might look like today, connected directly to whatever that stirring actually pointed toward. It does not need to be dramatic. It simply needs to be real. A conversation finally had. A decision finally made. A moment of honest rest finally taken without guilt. Whatever it is, let today be the day it actually begins, rather than another day it gets postponed once again. Here is something worth naming clearly about doubt. since doubt has likely already tried to creep back in as you have been reading this. A quiet voice suggesting this is simply a coincidence, simply generic content, nothing genuinely meant for you specifically. That doubt is understandable. It is also worth questioning honestly rather than automatically believing. Consider whether your own doubt reflects genuine, careful thought, or whether it reflects the same pattern of distraction and dismissal that almost kept you from finding this message in the first place. If it is the second, gently set that doubt aside, at least long enough to let this reflection actually finish its work. Here is something worth understanding about why persistence matters so much in moments like this one. Things that are genuinely meaningful rarely arrive perfectly, without any resistance or obstacle along the way. They usually arrive despite obstacles, despite distraction, despite doubt, despite everything that seemed determined to keep them from reaching you. The fact that this message reached you despite all of that is itself meaningful. Not because of anything magical about the message itself, but because of what it reveals about your own readiness, your own quiet refusal to let this particular moment slip past unnoticed. Here is something worth sitting with honestly. You have survived difficult things before. You know this already, even on the days you forget it. The specific difficulty currently weighing on you is not the first hard thing you have ever faced. Remember one specific difficulty from your past that once felt impossible to get through. Remember that you did, in fact, get through it. That same capacity for endurance, for quiet resilience, is still present within you now, even if this current difficulty feels different, even if it feels harder in its own particular way. You are not starting from nothing. You are starting from proven capability. Here is something worth understanding about the specific people in your life who might be waiting, quietly, for you to reach out, to be honest, to finally let them in on what you have actually been carrying. Consider whether someone specific came to mind as you read that sentence. If someone did, consider what it might mean to reach out to them today, even briefly, even imperfectly. You do not need to explain everything. You simply need to open the door slightly, allowing genuine connection back into a space that isolation may have quietly claimed. Here is something worth remembering about today specifically. This particular day did not have to include this particular moment. Countless other days went by without it. Something shifted today, specifically, allowing this message to actually reach you rather than being lost among everything else competing for your attention. Trust that shift. Do not dismiss it simply because you cannot fully explain why today was different from all the other days. This same message might have existed somewhere in your feed, unnoticed, unread, easily scrolled past. Today, it was not scrolled past. Today, you actually stopped. Here is something Archangel Michael wants you to hold on to, specifically, as this message continues toward its close. You were meant to find this. Not because of destiny in some grand, dramatic sense. Simply because something in you was ready, today, to finally receive what has likely been waiting for your attention for quite some time already. That readiness is real. Honor it. Do not let it quietly fade the moment this message ends and your ordinary day resumes its usual pace. Here is something worth understanding about what comes next, after this particular reflection ends. The specific matter this message has helped you notice does not resolve itself simply because you noticed it today. It requires continued, gentle attention, moving forward, beyond just this single moment of recognition. Consider what that continued attention might look like for you specifically. A regular moment each day, even brief, to check in honestly with yourself. A specific person you continue leaning on for support as you continue moving through whatever this particular season involves. A specific practice, whether prayer, reflection, or simply quiet stillness, that helps you remain connected to what you found here today, even once the initial impact of this specific message has naturally faded somewhat. Here is something worth understanding about setbacks, since they are likely to occur as you continue moving forward from today. Old patterns of distraction and avoidance do not disappear instantly simply because you had one meaningful moment of clarity. They may return, sometimes with surprising strength, in the days ahead. When they do, remember today. Remember that despite everything, you still found your way here. That same capacity for breaking through distraction, doubt, and resistance remains available to you again, whenever you need to call upon it in the days and weeks ahead. Here is something worth naming clearly about gratitude, since gratitude deserves genuine space within this reflection as well. Consider what you are genuinely grateful for today, even amid whatever difficulty currently exists alongside that gratitude. Not forced positivity that denies real struggle. Simply honest acknowledgement that good things exist too, even during hard seasons. Name one thing right now. Just one. Let yourself feel genuine appreciation for it, even briefly, before this message continues toward its close. Here is something worth understanding about hope specifically, since hope is easy to lose during long, difficult stretches of life. If hope has felt distant recently, difficult to access, almost embarrassing to admit you still quietly carry, this message is asking you to reconsider that embarrassment. Hope is not naive. Hope is not foolish. Hope is simply the quiet refusal to let current difficulty convince you that nothing better remains possible. You already demonstrated a version of that same refusal today, simply by stopping long enough to read these words instead of continuing to scroll past them. That refusal is hope, in action, whether you named it that way or not. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role support plays in what comes next. Consider who in your life might genuinely help you continue what this message has started today. Not someone who will simply nod along politely. Someone who will ask real questions. Someone who will notice if you quietly drift back into old patterns of avoidance. That kind of support matters. It is worth seeking out, even if it feels vulnerable to ask for it directly. If no one specific comes to mind right away, consider that professional support exists too. A counselor. A therapist. Someone trained specifically to help people move through exactly the kind of difficulty this message has been circling around throughout its content. Seeking that kind of help is not weakness. It is wisdom. Think about the specific hesitation that might arise if you consider reaching out for this kind of support. Perhaps a fear of being judged. Perhaps a belief that you should be able to handle this entirely on your own. Perhaps simply not knowing where to begin looking for the right kind of support. Whatever specific hesitation applies to you, notice it honestly, and consider gently questioning whether it genuinely reflects wisdom, or whether it simply reflects an old pattern that has kept you isolated for longer than genuinely necessary. Here is something worth understanding about the specific weight of comparison, since comparison often quietly undermines moments like this one. Consider whether you have been measuring your own particular struggle against someone else's apparently easier life, feeling as though your own difficulty somehow counts less because other people seem to be managing better. Release that comparison. Their life is not your life. Their timeline is not your timeline. What matters here, right now, is simply your own honest, particular journey, exactly as it is, without needing to measure it against anyone else's. Here is something worth naming about the specific fear of being truly seen, since this fear often operates quietly beneath the surface of ordinary daily avoidance. Somewhere inside you, there may be a part that worries what would happen if people actually knew the full weight of what you have been carrying. Worries they would judge. Worries they would pull away. Worries the burden would simply become too much for anyone else to hold alongside you. That fear is understandable. It is also, more often than not, inaccurate. Most people, when finally shown genuine honesty rather than a carefully managed performance, respond with far more compassion than the fear predicts. Consider testing that theory, gently, with one person you trust even slightly. You may be surprised by what actually happens. Here is something worth understanding about the specific relationship between rest and readiness. You cannot keep pouring from an empty container indefinitely. If exhaustion has been quietly building underneath everything else this message has already addressed, that exhaustion deserves direct attention too, not simply as an afterthought, but as something genuinely necessary. Consider what rest would actually look like for you, specifically, right now. Not the idealized version other people describe. The version that would genuinely restore something in you that has been running on empty for longer than you have probably admitted, even to yourself. Give yourself permission to pursue that rest, without guilt, starting today if at all possible. Here is something worth understanding about the specific power of small, repeated choices over time. You do not need to solve everything this message has touched on within a single day. Genuine change rarely happens that way, no matter how much a person might wish it could. What actually works, consistently, across countless different situations and different people, is small, repeated choice. One honest moment today. Another tomorrow. Another the day after that. Slowly, almost invisibly at first, these small choices accumulate into something genuinely different than where you started. Trust that accumulation, even on the days when progress feels invisible or impossibly slow. Here is something worth understanding about the specific danger of perfectionism as you move forward from today. If you find yourself believing that today's insight must immediately produce flawless, permanent change, release that particular expectation right now. It sets an impossible standard that few people, if anyone, could genuinely meet. Progress will be messy. You will have good days and harder days. You may forget parts of what this message offered, only to remember them again later, perhaps when you need them most. All of that is normal. None of it erases the genuine value of what you found here today. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role your own body plays throughout this process, since the body often carries what the mind tries to intellectualize away. Notice, right now, where you feel tension. Where you feel tightness. Where something in your physical body seems to be holding whatever this message has been circling around. Consider breathing into that specific place, gently, for just a few slow breaths. Not to force anything to resolve immediately. Simply to acknowledge that your body has been carrying this too, alongside your mind, and it deserves that same gentle attention. Here is something worth understanding about the specific significance of today's date, whatever it happens to be for you personally. Years from now, you may not remember the exact date you are reading this. But the shift that began today, however small it currently feels, may still be quietly unfolding in your life, long after the specific memory of this particular message has faded. That is how meaningful change usually works. Not through remembering every detail of where it started, but through the accumulated impact of decisions and awareness that started somewhere, sometime, and simply continued. Today can be that somewhere. Right now can be that sometime. Here is something worth understanding about the specific courage it took simply to keep reading this far. Many people would have stopped several paragraphs ago, returning to distraction the moment genuine reflection started asking something real of them. You did not stop. You are still here, even now, near the end of this particular message. That persistence matters. It says something true about your own capacity for sitting with difficult, meaningful things rather than immediately fleeing back into comfortable numbness. Carry that capacity forward. It will serve you well, again and again, throughout whatever remains ahead in your particular journey. Here is a final significant consideration before this message moves toward its true close. You were meant to find this today. Not because some external force orchestrated a perfect, dramatic sequence of events specifically for you alone. Simply because something honest inside you was finally ready to receive exactly this kind of reflection, at exactly this point in your life. Trust that readiness. It did not appear from nowhere. It was built, gradually, through everything you have already lived, survived, and continued carrying forward despite genuine difficulty. Before this message reaches its true close, take one final, quiet moment for yourself. Breathe. Let your shoulders soften. Silently acknowledge whatever specific matter this reflection helped you name today, and whatever small, honest step you might take in response to it, even something as simple as continuing to notice it rather than immediately pushing it back down beneath busyness once again. This does not need to feel dramatic. It simply needs to feel real. You were meant to find this. Despite everything trying to keep you distracted, doubtful, or too exhausted to notice. You found it anyway. Carry that with you. Here is one more layer worth adding before this message truly reaches its close, something that connects everything already shared into a single, lasting thread you can actually carry forward. Think about the specific version of yourself that exists 1 year from today, having genuinely carried forward whatever this message helped you notice right now. Picture that version clearly. Notice how they move through their days differently. Notice what they no longer tolerate that you currently tolerate. Notice what they have finally allowed themselves to want, openly, without apology. That version of you is not a fantasy disconnected from reality. It is simply the natural result of small, honest choices, repeated consistently, starting from exactly where you stand right now, today, having found this message despite everything. Here is something worth understanding about the specific relationship between faith and action, since faith alone, without any accompanying action, tends to remain purely theoretical, while action without any underlying faith tends to feel hollow and unsustainable over time. Genuine, lasting change typically requires both together, faith that something better remains genuinely possible, alongside real, concrete action taken consistently in that direction. Consider what specific action, however small, might genuinely reflect the faith this message has helped stir in you today. Not something dramatic. Something real. Something you could actually begin within the next 24 hours. Here is something worth understanding about the specific weight of unspoken prayers, since many people carry hopes and requests they have never actually spoken aloud, even in private, even to themselves. If something specific has remained unspoken within you, consider speaking it now, silently or aloud, however feels right to you personally. There is something genuinely powerful in simply naming a hope clearly, rather than allowing it to remain vague and unformed, floating somewhere in the back of your mind without ever being given the dignity of clear, direct expression. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role patience plays as you continue moving forward from today. The particular difficulty this message has helped you name did not develop overnight. It likely built gradually, over weeks, months, perhaps even years. Expecting it to resolve completely within days simply because you had one meaningful moment of clarity places an unrealistic burden on both the process and on yourself. Extend yourself patience equal to the time this particular difficulty actually took to develop. Healing and growth generally requires similar patience, unfolding gradually rather than instantly, regardless of how much a person genuinely wishes it could happen faster. Here is something worth understanding about the specific danger of isolation as you continue this process beyond today. Difficulty tends to convince a person that they are the only one experiencing exactly this particular struggle, that no one else could possibly understand. This is rarely actually true, even when it feels completely true in the moment. Somewhere, someone else has walked something remarkably similar to whatever you are currently walking. Consider seeking out that connection, whether through a support group, an online community focused on similar struggles, or simply through more honest conversation with people already present in your life. You were never meant to carry this entirely alone. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role of forgiveness in this process, whether forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of someone else, or both simultaneously. If resentment or self-blame has been quietly present alongside whatever this message has helped you notice, consider whether that resentment or self-blame genuinely continues serving you, or whether it has simply become another weight adding to everything else you are already carrying. Forgiveness does not require forgetting, excusing genuine harm, or immediate reconciliation. It simply means releasing some of the ongoing weight that continued resentment tends to place specifically on you, the person carrying it, regardless of whoever else may have been involved in the original difficulty. Here is something worth understanding about the specific significance of consistency over intensity as you continue moving forward. A single, intense burst of motivation, however powerful it feels today, rarely produces lasting change on its own. What actually produces lasting change is consistency, showing up repeatedly, even in smaller, less dramatic ways, day after day, week after week. Consider what a sustainable, consistent practice might look like for you specifically, something you could genuinely maintain even on difficult days, rather than an ambitious, intense commitment likely to be abandoned within the first week once initial motivation naturally begins to fade. Here is something worth understanding about the specific weight of expectation you may be placing on other people to notice your struggle without you ever directly communicating it. Many people wait, quietly, hoping someone will simply notice how hard things have been, rather than directly asking for the support they actually need. Consider whether this pattern has been present in your own particular situation. If it has, consider what it might mean to finally ask directly, clearly, for whatever specific support you genuinely need, rather than continuing to wait for someone else to somehow guess it on their own. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role gratitude plays even during genuinely difficult seasons, not as a way of denying real struggle, but as a way of maintaining a more complete, balanced perspective alongside that struggle. Difficulty rarely occupies the entirety of a person's life, even during the hardest seasons, though it can certainly feel that way when attention becomes narrowly focused exclusively on what is wrong. Consider deliberately searching, each day going forward, for at least one small thing worth genuine appreciation, holding it alongside whatever difficulty remains present, rather than allowing difficulty to entirely crowd out every other genuine experience available to you. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today, despite everything that almost kept you from finding it. Be gentle with yourself as you continue carrying whatever this reflection helped you notice, one honest, quiet step at a time. Michael says, "Thank you for staying long enough to actually receive this. It mattered, more than you may realize right now."